We are celebrating our 8th graders who got accepted into high schools of their choice. So this is their celebration table. They're off to great places. So yes, we're going to pop some bottles, sparkling cider, of course, and to get goodie bags. And the lovely ladies we see here are actually former students here at Grover Cleveland Mastery Charter School who are now in high school. We have Tashaya who goes to Perfect, and we have Nakira who goes to Crystal Ray, and they are actually here to speak to our 8th graders about what high school is really like.
Started with an affair and ended with an innocent woman killed, murdered in a Dunkin' drive-thru. And tonight, 2 people are charged with the murder of 35-year-old Rachel King, a killing prosecutors call horrific. This is the 10 o'clock news. I'm Jason Martinez.
I'm Sheba Russell. The mother and teacher was gunned down in front of her son. Police saying a deadly scheme involving a hired hitman.
Yeah, Shari, and today in court, the prosecution called on several detectives to walk the jurors through the interviews with some of the both of the defendants, rather. They also used the defendants' cell phone data to link them together and also to link the alleged gunman to the scene. Additionally, they say that alleged gunman was also watching news stories the day the murder happened.
A routine Tuesday morning. A mother and son heading to violin lessons. A quick stop at Dunkin' for coffee. What could go wrong? Welcome to Shadows of Crime. I'm your host, and if you're new here, make sure to subscribe because today's case will show you how quickly an ordinary moment can turn into a nightmare. April 11th, 2023, Cheltenham Township, Pennsylvania. Rachel King pulls into the drive-thru with her 11-year-old son Jalen in the backseat. It's the same route they take every Tuesday. Violin lessons before school, always with a coffee stop along the way. But today, someone else knows their routine. A light-colored sedan follows them into the parking lot. The driver doesn't want coffee. He's not there for breakfast. He has a very different agenda, one that's been months in the making. Rachel King was a beloved elementary school teacher, engaged to the love of her life, devoted to her son. She had no idea that her happiness had made her a target. She couldn't have known that someone had been watching, planning, preparing for this exact moment. What happened in that drive-thru would expose a conspiracy so twisted, so calculated, that it would take investigators weeks to piece together the truth. This wasn't random violence. This wasn't a robbery. This was something far more personal. Have you ever felt like someone was watching you? Drop a comment below and let me know what state you're watching from. The person behind this plot had one driving force: jealousy. Pure, toxic jealousy over a relationship that should have been forgotten. But some people can't let go. Some people would rather destroy than accept defeat. As Rachel and Jalen sat in their car, completely unaware of the danger approaching, the final phase of a murder-for-hire scheme was about to unfold. Months of planning, weeks of surveillance, all leading to this moment. But who wanted Rachel King dead? What had she done to deserve such hatred? And how far would someone go to eliminate the woman who stood in their way? The answers will reveal a web of obsession that turned deadly, and show you why sometimes the most dangerous person in your life is someone you've never even met. To understand why Rachel King became a target, you need to know who she was. This wasn't just another victim. This was a woman who touched lives every single day. Someone whose absence would leave a hole in an entire community. Rachel King spent her days at Grover Cleveland Mastery Charter School in Philadelphia's Tioga Easttown neighborhood, where she wasn't just a teacher, she was a lifeline. Her students didn't just learn history from her, they learned what it meant to have someone believe in them. Salim Gahe, one of her 8th grade students, would later say she was his favorite teacher, that she meant everything to him. That's the kind of impact Rachel had on young minds. But teaching wasn't just Rachel's job, it was her calling. She had dreams beyond the classroom too. Rachel was working toward becoming a principal and had plans to start her own curriculum consulting business. She wanted to expand her reach, help more students, make education better for everyone. At 35, she was building something meaningful, something that would last. Her colleagues at Grover Cleveland knew Rachel as someone who created a nurturing environment wherever she went. She didn't just teach lessons, she helped students grow as people. Her warmth and intelligence made her the kind of teacher students remembered long after graduation. The kind who changed lives simply by caring. Outside of school, Rachel's world revolved around one person, her 11-year-old son, Jalen. Their bond was unbreakable. Every Tuesday morning, she drove him to violin lessons before school. It wasn't just about the music, it was their time together, a routine that showed how involved she was in every aspect of his life. Rachel was the kind of mother who made sure her child knew he was loved, supported, and valued. Her family described her as a loving daughter and sister. Her favorite color was orange, a detail that would later become important when her family wore that color to court, honoring her memory even in their darkest moments. Rachel was the rock of her family, the person everyone turned to when they needed strength. Then there was William Hayes. Their love story began in the most natural way. Two educators who met as neighbors in Linwood Gardens, where their children attended the same school. Their shared passion for education brought them together, but it was so much more than professional compatibility. William would later describe Rachel as his rock, the love of his life, the woman who made him a better person. Their relationship deepened over time, built on mutual respect and genuine affection. William worked as a director at the Learning Experience, an early childhood center in Center City. Like Rachel, he was dedicated to shaping young minds, to making education better. They understood each other's commitment, supported each other's dreams. When William proposed to Rachel, it felt like the natural next step for two people who had found their perfect match. They were planning a future together, blending their families, building something beautiful. Rachel had found her person, someone who loved her son as much as she did, someone who shared her values and her vision for the future. Their engagement represented everything good about second chances and finding love when you're ready for it. Two educators, two parents, two people who had learned what really mattered in life. They were happy, settled, looking forward to their wedding and the life they would build together. But happiness, especially the kind that comes after struggle, can make some people jealous. While Rachel and William were planning their future, someone else was watching from the shadows. Someone who couldn't accept that their brief moment in William's life was over. Someone who saw Rachel's joy as a personal attack. Every love story has its complications, but for Rachel King and William Hayes, the complication had a name: Julie Jean. Julie entered William's life during a brief period when he and Rachel had gone their separate ways. What started as a casual connection quickly became something more complicated, at least for one of them. For about 10 months, William and Julie saw each other. To William, it was never more than a temporary arrangement, a way to fill the silence while he and Rachel figured out their future. But for Julie, it was different. She saw possibility, maybe even permanence. When William decided to end things and rekindle his relationship with Rachel, Julie struggled to accept it. The man she wanted had chosen someone else, and that reality was more than she could bear. William's decision to propose to Rachel was the final blow. He was clear with Julie their relationship was over, and he was moving forward with the woman he truly loved. But Julie refused to let go. She began reaching out to William repeatedly, calling, texting, and even showing up at his apartment uninvited. The messages weren't just about closure. They were about control, about refusing to accept that her chapter in William's life had ended. The warning signs were there, but as is so often the case, they were easy to dismiss at first. Maybe it was just heartbreak, maybe she'd move on, but Julie's behavior only escalated. She started harassing not just William, but Rachel as well. The calls and texts became more frequent, more insistent. She would appear at William's home without warning, ignoring his requests for space and privacy. It wasn't long before the situation crossed a line. William realized this wasn't just a case of hurt feelings. This was something darker. he took the step of filing for a protection from abuse order against Julie, hoping that legal boundaries would keep her away. But even that didn't stop her. Julie's obsession had taken hold, and she was determined to insert herself into William and Rachel's lives, no matter the cost. Looking back, the signs of dangerous obsession were everywhere. Julie's inability to accept rejection, her relentless pursuit, her refusal to respect boundaries. These are the kinds of behaviors that can escalate quickly, especially when fueled by jealousy. It's a pattern seen in too many cases, where someone's fixation turns from emotional pain to something far more threatening. Have you ever seen someone cross the line from heartbreak to obsession? Maybe you've witnessed a friend or acquaintance struggle to let go, or maybe you've experienced it yourself. Let me know in the comments if you've ever recognized these warning signs in your own life or community. Sometimes the most dangerous threats don't come from strangers. They come from people who simply can't accept no for an answer. For Rachel and William, the situation was becoming impossible to ignore. What started as a breakup had turned into a campaign of harassment, and the sense of unease was growing. Rachel, always focused on her son and her students, now had to look over her shoulder, wondering if Julie would show up again, wondering what she might do next. But no one could have predicted just how far Julie was willing to go. The story was about to take a turn that would leave a family shattered and a community in shock. Julie Jean's obsession wasn't fading. It was about to explode. As Rachel and William tried to move forward, Julie Jean was plotting in the background, her obsession deepening with every passing week. She wasn't just sending messages or making unannounced visits anymore. She was searching for a way to make her pain someone else's problem. That's when she turned to someone who could help her cross a line that can never be uncrossed. Julie's connection to Zaki al-Hakim came through family ties. The father of her children was al-Hakim's cousin, and through this link she found someone willing to listen and ultimately to act. In February 2023, Julie added al-Hakim's number to her phone under the name Za. Their communication quickly became frequent and secretive, with both parties taking steps to cover their tracks. Digital evidence would later reveal just how carefully they tried to hide their plans. Investigators found that Julie and al-Hakim used cash apps to send money back and forth, transactions that would later be tied to the purchase of a gun and a getaway vehicle. In the days leading up to the murder, Julie deleted nearly 800 text messages from her phone just minutes before detectives interviewed her. But technology has a long memory, and many of those messages were recovered, including a final payment sent on the day of the murder with a cryptic emoji message. Link up, message me, no phones. That's it. The preparation phase was chilling in its detail. On March 30, 2023, Julie and al-Hakim went together to a Philadelphia dealership and bought a used silver Mercury Sable for $1,500. This wasn't just any car. It would become the vehicle that followed Rachel from her apartment to the Dunkin' drive-thru on the morning of her murder. Witnesses and surveillance would later confirm that the Sable was seen trailing Rachel's Ford Edge, its driver waiting for the perfect moment. But the planning didn't stop there. Al-Hakim's phone contained photographs of Rachel, images that had been taken of Julie's phone as she displayed pictures of her intended target. There was even a downloaded Google map showing Rachel's residence and the route she took to and from home. Every detail was mapped out, every movement tracked. Then there was the weapon. Investigators would later discover a photograph of a ghost gun on al-Hakim's phone, a privately built firearm with no serial number, nearly impossible to trace. Ballistics experts would determine that the same type of weapon was used in Rachel's murder, but the story of this gun didn't start or end with Rachel. Just 4 days before Rachel was killed, another life was taken. On April 7, 2023, James Chris Farrell Jr. was shot and killed in Philadelphia. The suspect fled in a silver Mercury Sable, the same car later used in Rachel's murder. When police compared the shell casings from both scenes, they found a match. The same ghost gun had been used in both killings. Suddenly, what looked like a single act of violence was part of a much larger pattern. This revelation sent shockwaves through the investigation. Was Rachel's murder a one-off, or was there something even more sinister at play? The connection between the two crimes raised the stakes for detectives, who now had to consider whether Al-Hakim was a hired gun with more victims in his sights. As the pieces came together, the morning of April 11th loomed large. Rachel King had no idea that her every move was being watched, that her routine was being used against her. She was simply a mother, taking her son to a violin lesson, stopping for coffee like she always did. But on that morning, the plan Julian Al-Hakim had spent weeks perfecting was about to be set in motion. The silver Mercury Sable was waiting, the ghost gun was ready, and as Rachel and Jalen pulled into the drive-thru, the final act of this deadly plot was about to begin. What happened next would change everything. April 11th, 2023 began like any other Tuesday for Rachel King and her son Jalen. The morning air was filled with the usual rush, packing up for school, making sure Jalen's violin was in its case, and heading out the door. For Rachel, these moments were precious. She cherished the time spent with her son, especially their weekly ritual, a quick stop for coffee at Dunkin' before his violin lesson. It was a small slice of normalcy, a routine that brought comfort and connection. But as Rachel and Jalen left their apartment in Elkins Park and made their way to the car, they had no idea that someone was watching. The silver Mercury Sable, purchased just days earlier by Julie Jean and driven by Zaki Al-Hakim, was parked nearby. Al-Hakim had been waiting, tracking Rachel's movements, ready to follow her every turn. The drive to the Melrose Shopping Center was uneventful. At least, it seemed that way. Rachel focused on the road, probably chatting with Jalen about his lesson or the day ahead. Behind them, the Sable kept its distance, blending in with the morning traffic. Al-Hakim was careful, making sure not to draw attention, but never letting Rachel's Ford Edge out of his sight. As Rachel pulled into the Dunkin' drive-thru, she was just another customer starting her day. She placed her order, exchanged a few words with Jalen, and waited in line. The routine was so familiar, so ordinary, that neither of them noticed the Sable slip into the parking lot and stop a short distance away. Al-Hakim watched, waiting for the perfect moment. The line inched forward. Al-Hakim stepped out of the Sable, moving quickly but without panic. He approached the driver's side of Rachel's SUV, his face set, his purpose clear. He didn't try to speak. He didn't hesitate. In a matter of seconds, everything changed. Al-Hakim raised the ghost gun and fired through the window, striking Rachel 5 times. The shot shattered the morning calm, sending glass and panic flying. Rachel had no chance to react, no time to shield her son. The attack was swift, targeted, and merciless. Jalen, sitting in the backseat, was frozen in shock. In an instant, the world he knew was ripped away. He watched as his mother slumped forward, the life draining from her before his eyes. The sound of gunfire, the sight of blood, the chaos of the moment, these would become memories he could never escape. Al-Hakim didn't linger. He turned, walked back to the Sable, and drove off, leaving behind a scene of devastation. The entire attack had taken less than a minute. Other customers and employees at Dunkin' scrambled for cover, some calling 911, others trying to process what they had just witnessed. Rachel King died at the scene. For Jalen, the trauma was immediate and overwhelming. In the days that followed, he would cling to a photograph of his mother, refusing to let it go, as if holding onto her image could somehow bring her back. The innocence of his childhood was shattered in a single brutal moment. As news of the shooting spread, police quickly realized this was no random act. The precision of the attack, the lack of any attempt at robbery, and the fact that Rachel was targeted in broad daylight all pointed to something far more deliberate. Witnesses described the silver Mercury Sable fleeing the scene, and it didn't take long for law enforcement to connect the dots. That same day, Philadelphia police spotted the Sable, They had already been on the lookout for the car, knowing it was linked to another murder just 4 days earlier. When officers tried to pull Al-Hakim over, he refused to stop. A high-speed chase ensued, weaving through city streets, as Al-Hakim tried desperately to escape. The pursuit ended when Al-Hakim crashed the Sable into a fence along 16th Street. Officers quickly surrounded the vehicle and took him into custody. Inside the car, they found fired bullet casings, evidence that would later tie Al-Hakim not only to Rachel's murder, but also to the killing of Chris Farrell days before. The arrest brought a sense of relief to a community in shock, but it did nothing to ease the pain for Rachel's family. Her parents, siblings, and especially Jalen were left to pick up the pieces, struggling to understand how a routine morning could end in such horror. The violence was over, but the scars would last a lifetime. For investigators, the case was just beginning. The evidence inside the Sable, the digital trail left by Julie Jean and Zaki Al-Hakim, and the heartbreak of a young boy who had lost his mother would all play a role in the search for justice. But for Rachel King, there would be no more violin lessons, no more morning coffee runs, no more ordinary days. Her life had been stolen in an act of jealousy and rage, leaving behind a legacy of love and a community determined to remember her. Digital forensics played a pivotal role. Investigators recovered deleted messages between Julie Jean and Zaki Al-Hakim, including hundreds of texts wiped from Jean's phone just minutes before her police interview. But technology left a trail. Cash App transactions, location data, and even a final payment sent the day of the murder, all pointing to a carefully coordinated plan. On Al-Hakim's phone, they found photographs of Rachel, images of her home, and a downloaded map showing her daily route. The digital footprint was damning. Ballistics experts matched the shell casings from Rachel's murder to those found at the scene of Chris Farrell's killing just 4 days earlier. Both shootings were carried out with the same ghost gun, a weapon built to be untraceable but not invisible to the science of ballistics. The evidence was overwhelming, and the case against both Jean and Al-Hakim grew stronger with every new discovery. By March 2024, the case was ready for trial. The courtroom was filled with emotion as Rachel's family, friends, and former students gathered to witness the proceedings. William Hayes took the stand, describing the events that led up to the murder and the impact Rachel had on his life. Rachel's siblings and parents spoke about her kindness, her dedication, and the void her death had left in their lives. The pain in their voices was unmistakable, a reminder that this was not just a legal battle, but a fight for justice for a beloved mother, daughter, and teacher. The prosecution laid out the evidence, the digital communications, the financial transactions, the surveillance, and the ballistic match. They painted a clear picture of a murder-for-hire plot driven by jealousy and executed with chilling precision. The defense tried to cast doubt, but the facts were undeniable. It took the jury less than an hour, just 52 minutes, to reach a verdict. Both Julie Jean and Zaki Al-Hakim were found guilty of first-degree murder and conspiracy. The judge handed down life sentences without the possibility of parole, ensuring that neither would ever walk free again. For Rachel's family, the verdict brought a measure of closure, but not relief. Her mother, Carl, and father, Reverend Alan King Jr., spoke about the pain of losing their daughter and the trauma inflicted on Jalen.
There really were no winners today. This was not a winning situation at all. My daughter is gone. This does not bring her back. We're glad to have memories of her, but my heart grieves, aches.
Rachel's siblings echoed the sentiment, describing her as light and life, a fierce advocate, and the person who held their family together. They spoke of the small moments they missed, the laughter, the support, and the love that could never be replaced. Do you think justice was truly served in this case? And what more can communities do to prevent tragedies like this from happening again? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective matters, and together we can keep these conversations going because every voice counts when it comes to protecting those at risk. The trial may have ended, but the impact of Rachel King's life and her loss will never fade from the hearts of those who knew her. Rachel King's story is a heartbreaking reminder of how quickly obsession can turn deadly, and how important it is to recognize the warning signs before it's too late. In the months leading up to her murder, there were clear indicators that Julie Jean's fixation had crossed a dangerous line. Repeated unwanted contact, refusal to accept the end of a relationship, and escalating harassment are all red flags that should never be ignored. Too often these behaviors are dismissed as just emotional or not serious, but Rachel's case shows the devastating consequences of letting such threats go unchecked. Prevention starts with early intervention. When someone begins to show signs of stalking or obsessive behavior, it's crucial to take action, whether that means seeking a protection order, involving law enforcement, or reaching out to support organizations. Community awareness is also key. Friends, family, and neighbors can play a vital role by listening, believing victims, and helping them access resources. Schools and workplaces can offer training to recognize and respond to warning signs, creating a network of support that can make all the difference. For Rachel's family, the journey toward healing has been long and difficult, especially for her son, Jalen. Losing his mother in such a traumatic way left scars that will take years to heal. But Rachel's loved ones have rallied around him, providing counseling, stability, and as much love as possible. They've made it their mission to ensure that Jalen knows he is not alone and that his mother's memory will always be a source of strength. The community, too, has stepped up, offering support, raising funds, and honoring Rachel's legacy in ways big and small. Rachel's impact didn't end with her life. As a teacher, she inspired countless students, encouraging them to believe in themselves and reach for their dreams. Her colleagues remember her as a mentor and a friend, someone who brought light and laughter into every room. Even now, her story continues to inspire conversations about safety, awareness, and the need for change. The central message of Rachel's story is clear. Unchecked jealousy and obsession can destroy lives, and the cost of ignoring threats is simply too high. It's a call to action for all of us, to take every warning sign seriously, to support those at risk, and to push for stronger protections in our communities. No one should have to live in fear, and no family should have to endure the pain that Rachel's loved ones now carry. As we reflect on Rachel King's life and legacy, let's commit to transforming tragedy into awareness and action. By sharing her story, we honor her memory and help protect others from similar harm. If you or someone you know is experiencing stalking or harassment, don't wait. Reach out for help. Together, we can create a safer, more compassionate world where every life is valued and every threat is taken seriously.